But for the rest of the story, we do have to go to Matthew chapter 1. And this should bless everyone who is listening. The Bible in Matthew chapter 1, giving the genealogy of Jesus, mentions 4 women, 3 of whom have very dubious backgrounds. You have, for example, Tamar. There's a story in the Old Testament about her. It's actually an immoral story. You have Rahab, who evidently was the mother of Boaz, according to the text here. And she was a prostitute, as all of us know, mentioned there in the book of Joshua. That was her background. You have Ruth, who is a Moabitess. And you even have Bathsheba mentioned, who was, of course, the wife of David. And isn't it interesting, John, that Matthew, when he wrote this, didn't want to mention her name, because we all remember that David actually stole the wife from Uriah
and then
had
murdered.
Uriah murdered for it. And it says, and David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah. And what is God doing? Could it be, John, that God in his infinite providence wanted to say this? I want a Moabitess in the genealogy of Jesus, so that right from the beginning people would understand that the gospel isn't just for one class of people or one kind of people, but that the gospel reaches out to everyone. And so Ruth occurs in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Now, does Naomi know that? Is that the reason for the famine? No, Naomi doesn't know that. She dies not knowing that. But you know, that's okay, because that's exactly where we are.
God used her in a great way. She just didn't understand it.
She didn't understand it, and she could never have predicted it.
Right. And she could have done better, Erwin. She could have trusted God. And God might have lightened the load in some ways that would have at least given her joy.
At least in her old age, she had joy because of her grandson.
Right.
But even if she had not had a grandson, it would have been a tragedy if she had died bitter, and she would not have known what God had in mind. You know, God has different things in mind. Famine is very important. You know, the Bible says the Lord sends famine. That's hard for us to grasp, and we can't go into that in too much detail. But just think about that for a moment. It was a famine that brought the prodigal son back to his father. Mm-hmm. Remember, there was a famine in the land, and the boy ate with the pigs, and it was that reality that brought him back to his father. So God does various things. So I want to say to people today, it is so important to realize we do not need to understand what God is up to in order to trust him.